It's sunrise at the homestead and it's breakfast time for the critters, so stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Pine Meadows Hobby Farm. I'm your host, Jerry Hansen. It's sun's coming up this early spring morning and I have to feed the animals. And the geese always take flight down to the pond for their morning swim. With spring comes a lot of work here on the homestead. Getting seeds ready to start in the greenhouse is one of my main projects today. Also fixing and finishing the fence line around the pastures. I got one fence line done so the pigs can get out and pasture. And look at these babies. They're 3 weeks old. They're just getting so fat and happy. And they're scouting about as Mama is having her breakfast. And the chickens get their portion, and the ducks and the geese, they also get their breakfast as well. I fed the rabbits already. They got their meal, and we have a nice, calm, sunny morning on the homestead. I'll take you guys into the greenhouse and see the activities I have planned today for the greenhouse. I'll do that in another video, so look for that video. So this is the greenhouse. It's nice and warm in here and a little bit chilly outside, so that's a good thing, guys, because these barrels are doing the job that Misty Rainey had set them up for. By the way, we're in another episode, Homestead Hacks Revealed, and I believe it features the barrels, and I know it features some activities that Jeremy and I had with Marty Rainey working with the metal roofing. But anyway, we still have the Swiss chard growing. I have radishes and carrots growing in here. We have some Brussels sprouts over here that I haven't fruited yet. I have my garlic started in here. We have some flowers going in here, snapdragons. Among the seeds that we have, we've been drying all year and getting ready to plant this year. Of course, up here in the trough, we've got some lettuce started along with some spinach. And the other trough will be planting and starting my peppers again over there. And then as they mature, I'll transplant them into the garden bed outside. I also managed to get some more weed control. I got a bunch of that stuff from that estate cleanup. So this whole quarter of the garden will be able to be weed protected. I have to go down and get some more mulch or bags of pine shavings and put them over this to weight it down and also keep it, make it look nice and keep me out of the mud. And then number one is keeping the weeds down. Now I'm using the pine shavings because they'll age and they'll look like these pine shavings as I put down last year. These will keep, and that way all I have to do is cultivate the middle rows and get this bed ready for planting. I'll be doing that probably next week. So the only area of my garden that I will be cultivating with the Roto Tiller is this quarter area here. This is a 25 by 25 foot area. I'll just turn the soil over with the Roto Tiller, and I've been implementing all that with the stuff I've been cleaning out of the rabbit cages and also the chicken cages, and they've been sitting there since last fall and then through the winter, and then I'll just turn it all under, and then hopefully that'll be enough nutrients for corn to grow this year. My garden is broken up into 4 different sections. The total size of this garden right here is 50 feet wide by 50 feet long, and each quarter section is 25 feet by 25 feet. As explained earlier, this quarter section here will be exclusively for corn. I'm going to try growing some more bean crops to set in and bring in the nitrogen for the corn, and also be planting a bunch of squash in here as a ground cover to help control the weeds. So we're going to try that sister crop again this year. This quarter section right here is where I grew my tomatoes. I had some flowers, some herbs, and several other variety of vegetables that were all growing together. We're going to do the same with this plot this year as we did last year, because it turned out to be so successful, and I will be expanding it just a little bit, but I don't need to add any more wood shavings. I just need to cultivate these rows and get it ready for planting in about a month or two. This area that has all the weed guard on it, this quarter piece of my garden is going to be a special place for as far as the garden goes. This section will be planted with exclusively those plants which come back and fruit year after year. So once I planted it, I don't have to replant it again. So this whole 25% of my garden will be some selected vegetables that grow back year after year, such as asparagus. I did buy some asparagus and we're going to be planting those. And then also strawberries. I've got my strawberries. I'm going to put a good bed in there. My blueberries, I'm going to transplant them on here. And also we have the grape from the grape trellis that we built here in a previous video. And then I'm going to be modifying my raspberry row and building some wire holders for holding the canes and getting a more successful crop at my raspberries. And then there's this quarter. I just laid some plastic visqueen out to control the weeds. It worked perfect. It's been down here for a year now, and I will be doing the same thing with this section as previous, and we're going to be planting all of our ground crops such as cucumbers, zucchini squash, pumpkins, cantaloupe, crops like that. But with the addition, I'll be adding some more features. I have some extra cattle panels up there that I'll be using and putting on posts and using them as a trellis work to grow some of that crop vertically, to be able to get it off the ground and get more space on the ground to be able to grow more in such a small place. I laid straw down here last year to try to experiment with that to see how well it went. Besides, I had leftover straw from when we were filming the show. They used some of that straw for building some of the fire, for the fire drill we filmed here in that episode of Homestead Rescue. But I laid it out here to decompose it. It's breaking down for the most part, but I want to do the same thing here as over here in the other section, and that is cover it with wood shavings. The pine shavings, being on top of this visqueen, as they decay, the acid won't leach into the ground and turn the soil too acidic for them. But each place where I will be planting the actual plants will be fortified with some nice nutritional soils, so that they will be able to have some food to grow on and hopefully produce some nice, large, plump fruit for us. Some of you may recognize this from a previous video from last year. This is a little structure I built from a resource material that we're laying around the homestead. I wanted to create the illusion of a double fence because I've been having problems in the past with deer jumping my tall fence and getting into the garden. So as I create the illusion of a double fence by using this old wiring, creating this trellis and a small bed, that way I can minimize the amount of soil I'll be using. I can actually plant beans and peas and anything I can trellis within these. I do have plans to continue all the way around the garden with some form of a trellis or another. And then there's the obstruction of these pesky stumps I have about 4 stumps here in the garden that are eventually rotting away. These trees were cut down 5 years ago, and they've decayed only this much. This one's starting to grow mushrooms, as I noticed some of the others, and that way the mycelium will get in there and help speed up the process of decay. I did have plans of growing mushrooms, but I had too much on my plate up until this point so far, because we still had a lot of the infrastructure to get built and put in, and mushrooms were one of those extra luxuries, if you will, just to add to the garden. I still will do that, but not at this time. Maybe later I might be able to pull together some material that I'll resource off the farm. I think oak logs are the best source for growing mushrooms. So we'll get to that later, and I'll make a whole nother video on growing mushrooms on the homestead. Speaking of other videos, don't forget to tune in to my videos on Backyard Mechanics series, on sharpening the tine tillers and getting ready for your spring cultivation with your Roto Tiller, and also on how to replace the belts as they wear out on these beasts. Being Easter and springtime and a symbol of renewal, the last couple of years we had plenty of baby animals on the farm to be able to share with you. We don't have any right now, except for these little piglets is the only babies. Now, I did have a rabbit that had 9 kits when she kindled the other day, but being a first-time mommy, she did not know what to do with that nesting box. She ended up having them all on the cage floor, and when I went up there to look at them, all of them were dead. That's right, and these were the offspring of Bob the Bunny. And speaking of Bob the Bunny, I have not seen hide nor hair of him anywhere in the past 2 weeks. Usually he hangs out in the garden or the backyard here, sometimes the front yard, but mostly up there on the stoop of the rabbit house. Lots of projects going on here on the homestead. I still have to do some more repairs and clean up that fifth wheel, take it down and update the tags on it, and then we can go ahead and take that camping. And then I still want to show you guys that collapsible boat and how I put it together. Also, I still want to install this fancy cherry wood door on my back porch off of my dining room. We've got that project going on, planned for just in a month or so. We're waiting for it to warm up a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and do the renovation on that. And yet there's a major expense I have to tackle this year. Actually, 2 major expenses. We've got to get the septic tank pumped. We have to pump it every 5 years. And then also bring in a couple of loads of gravel. If I order a dump truck with a trailer load, I can get away with 2 loads of those. But if it's really expensive because they charge a lot of money for just transporting. But if I use my load handler in my 1-ton dually, I can haul a ton at a time for it's 12 bucks a load. And then get my driveway repaired and all the sinkholes filled in, and then also gravel over my driveway area where I park my cars. Now, I've used carpeting. There was a carpeting left over from the estate when I purchased this, and I laid it down over the bridge area where the culvert is because the rock kept washing out, and I laid gravel over the top of it. And ever since then, the gravel stayed. Just a little bit of the carpet's exposed, but that shows I need to put some more gravel down. I did manage to get a big chunk of carpet because we replaced some carpeting in the other estate that I was cleaning up, and I went ahead and laid it down here for my daughter's car to park on. We're going to be laying gravel over the top of that because the problem with the soil here is eventually your gravel sinks into the mud. It doesn't stay on the surface. Even if you put shale down and then rock and gravel, it still doesn't stay. It eventually sinks into the mud, and this carpeting will hold it in place for a while longer. And from what I understand, that carpeting eventually is biodegradable. It may look like crap now, but once the gravel's on, you can't tell. The aesthetics will look pretty good, and the homestead will be dressed up. So that's the goals. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check out these other 2 videos on maintenance on the Roto Tillers. This one's on sharpening your tines on your Roto Tiller, and this one down here is on replacing the belt. And also check out this video right here. This shows you how we ended up here at Pine Meadows Hobby Farm in the first place. Be sure to share my videos, subscribe, and also leave a comment. I enjoy reading your comments. We'll see you guys again in more videos. Bye-bye.